Welcome to this episode of What's Important Now. And I have with me today Rosie Odsey, who's a great mate of mine, who I met through the startup community here in Brisbane. Hi, Rosie. How you going?
Hey, I'm really good. Thanks, Cara. How are you?
I am awesome today, except for the fact that I just burnt dinner.
Hey, look, we're making dinner. It's a new world.
Yes, that's right. And I can see my glasses are reflecting and I can't see anything, so I'm just taking them off. Yes, so I think that's just like a thing about working from home. You get sidetracked and all of a sudden you forget that you've had like something on the stove for like the last 4 hours. And
Even I did it last week. I blackened a 8 chicken thigh.
oh no.
The timer went off. It was next to me. Absent-mindedly, I stopped it and continued what I was doing and didn't notice until an hour later. So,
Oh
well.
no. Oh, that's no good. Yeah. So, Rosie, tell me a little bit about you. Like, what's your background? What have you been up to? What was life like before the pandemic?
Yeah, so a bit about me. I am I guess, a digital Jill of all trades.
Ooh.
I could never get myself to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. So I've been trying out a bunch of different careers and interests, and most recently, before the pandemic set in, I was starting a new business, and that was really exciting. And the real struggles around that, or the real problem I was trying to solve around that at that stage, was how do we set up the structure, and where, how are we going to, like, who is going to pay for what in terms of setting up the business. And then the pandemic hit, and a whole bunch of stuff changed. So yeah, I mean, most people have seen me do things like events, a bit of digital marketing, a bit of teaching, and in the more recent past, I've been someone who helps people set up systems. So whether that's for themselves and how they do their day, or how they do their email, or how a small business might be able to automate a few simple processes, or create procedures, that's what I've been sort of working on. Yeah.
So have you been in demand lately?
It's been a really interesting kind of shift. I actually, I decided to take a strategic retreat. So my work has been pretty even. A few contracts cut short because of the pandemic. And then instead of reaching out to see what was going on, I decided to just hunker down and figure out what I wanted next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's that been like for you?
It's been really good, actually. I at first with the pandemic, I had my moment of worrying about what the future would hold. But once I had sort of had my time with that, my way of coping with tremendous uncertainty is to focus on what's within my control. And what's within my control is my daily routines, my habits. And so I just solidly fell back into those, almost clinging to them like a false kind of lifeboat. It's been good. It took me a while to get into a rhythm, and then I've, I don't know, slowly opened up into a few different places. So what I found out for myself in terms of what I want next, definitely want to focus more on my writing. It's something that I've always wanted to do. I was never that excited about being an author as much as a writer. And the only thing you need to do to be a writer is write. So, so I started focusing down on that. And there is a longer game that I'm thinking about now. For ages, I could only really plan a month or a few in advance. And now I've sort of got some ideas, but really, like, it's taken the whole pandemic to get to the point where, like, I've had enough introspection to know what I want. Yeah.
Interesting. So what's the difference for you now? Like, what's the biggest thing that stands out to you as totally different in terms of your priorities to what was happening for you before?
You know, it's kind of funny that it took the pandemic to do this, but I would have always told you that my family and my partner were the most important things to me. Um, but if you look at how much time I sort of spent with them, or even, you know, how much thoughtfulness I put into our relationships, it wasn't that much. And
Mm,
since the pandemic started, I realized, you know what, like if I'm really paring it back to what's most important with all of this uncertainty, I really want to be talking to my mom, my dad, my two brothers,
yeah.
and spending time with my partner. So what's been interesting for me is that's become actually important. I now do weekly calls with all of my family members, and I've really trying to treat my partner, because we live together, not just as like a housemate that I'm pretty close to,
Yeah.
but also, you know, someone I really care about and want to spend time. It's so easy to forget to spend actual time when you're always around each other. So
Mm,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point, actually. And it's funny that, like, I've interviewed a lot of people about what's important to them over the last year or so. And a lot of people say family is most important. But then when you dig a little bit deeper, it's that same experience of like, actually, I'm not really prioritizing my family at all. And they all of a sudden get really confronted by that because they realize that what they're saying is important is not what they are actually doing that is important. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
did you have that experience? Did you feel confronted when you realized, wow, I'm not really putting energy into my family and I say that it's important to me?
It it I have to say, like, I've been pretty intentional with this sort of stuff for a little while, and I knew I had to. I've spent the last 2 years working on like just really exquisite self-care,
Oh, I love
and I
that.
feel,
I love
yeah,
that.
and
Exquisite
I,
self care. Mm,
yeah, look, take it as a motto. It's a great ideal to live towards, but
yeah.
I feel like once you get to a certain point, you feel like you have room for that. I don't think that people have so much issue with finding time for family, even if that's what they say, or even getting around to it. It's more like, even if you have half an hour spare, if your mind is full of all of the problems of your day and you're underslept and you're not feeling good in your body, you're not going to have space to call a family member that you still, even if they're very dear to you, you
Yeah.
haven't got a comfortable, you know, cadence with. So I think it took all of that to get around to this. But yeah, no, I mean, honestly, in terms of priorities, like if I'm not spending money or time on it, I can't say that it's that, you know, like I can't then say it's really important to me. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that is a really good point because how often do we do that? How often do we just say, oh, yeah, I want to do such and such, or this is really important to me? And yet, in reality, our actions just totally contradict that. It's like I say weight loss is important to me, and then I go and buy a Kit Kat.
I know that feel, man. I know that feel. I know the exact vending machine that gets me every time as well.
And look, I'm not proud of it, but I, if it's really important to me, the question then to ask is, okay, well, I'm saying this is important to me. And in my heart, yeah, I think it is important to me, but my actions are doing otherwise. Well, where is the gap? Like, why am I self sabotaging? Why am I not doing that thing that I say is important to me? And I think that's the place to look, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think, but also it's really hard to see it ourselves. Like
Mm,
personally, I found it has taken other people's perspectives, because I can't outthick my own blind spots, right?
mm,
And it really, like for me, I found it's taken other people calling out my patterns to be able to see why. And then even when you see why, sometimes you don't yet have tooling or the resilience to get past that.
Yeah.
But I think it's all a spiral upwards, right? Like I have a firm belief that um, that even if you know what you want and you can't quite get there, any attempt at getting there is spiraling upwards. It's slowly piling on, and eventually one day it breaks through. That's been my experience. I don't know about you, but yeah, that's how I think about that.
Yeah, I mean, things come in waves for me. It's like you're just going up and up and up and up and up, and then all of a sudden you just go like this, and then you'll go back up, and it might look like that for a while, and
Yeah, for
that's
sure.
life, that's living. And it's not this kind of straight line. And somebody once said, if your life looks like this, you're dead.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's so true. And like a lot of people will portray balance like this. And I'm like, no,
Yeah,
balance is like
yeah,
this.
yeah.
You know, all we can do is reduce that wave a little
Mm,
bit.
yeah, yeah. No, I would agree with that. And I think that it's more, I sort of, yeah, it's why I don't really see it like a spiral upwards. I sort of see that I feel like I've experienced a lot of growth over the years, and that I've become a more competent human being in some ways. But then I'll have days where I feel completely at a loss, um, or just really angry about stupid shit. Stuff that's just like not worth spending my energy and time on. Do you find that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've gone through similarly a tremendous amount of personal growth. I am so much healthier than I was even like 3, 5, 10 years ago. Um,
You look
and yet,
amazing, by the way.
oh,
Like,
thank you.
I gotta say, like, I haven't seen you for a little while, and you're looking amazing and fit and healthy. It's wonderful.
Yeah, thanks. No, really, like I've been working on it, so I will own that instead of like
Great.
brushing it off. Yeah, no, I've been working on it, and but honestly, like, okay, so I'll tell you an example that happened at the beginning of the pandemic. So I obviously we all heard about what was going on in different ways. I'm not really, I don't I don't read news. It's a thing I don't do, and I hadn't
Hmm.
done it, and I was like, so I avoided a lot of the hype um, until someone and I, someone had a conversation with me, and
Yeah.
I realized, oh, this is a big deal, right? And then I spent 2 days just
Mm,
scrolling and
yeah.
freaking out and worrying and devastated. Like I couldn't, I couldn't deal. A lot of my stuff, they call it like, um, it's a form of grief, like grief in advance. I don't
Mm,
remember what it's called, but I was just really grieving the loss of life that we were about to experience across the
mm,
world, and the businesses and the people that would be financially ruined across the
yeah.
world. It's
Yeah.
like you could just see it coming, and so I'm there like with the weight of the world's consequences. That like you can't prepare for some things. And like even if it wasn't logical, I've had very illogical days where like there was no pandemic and nothing bad was happening, but I just can't, get out of bed. Once in a while it
Mm,
happens. But I
yeah.
think now the difference between me and back a couple of years ago is, oh, this is one of those days. I'm gonna spend this day doing its thing, and I know I can get back on the horse when this has run its course.
Mm, yeah. I I find that I'm sleeping some nights really well, and some nights I'm just not sleeping hardly at all. Like I'll wake up in the middle of the night and struggle to get back to sleep. Um, I'm really loving my routine in terms of getting up in the morning, making coffee, having a shower, getting all my stuff, all my gear out on the back deck, um, and it's my office for the day. At the moment, we're moving house shortly, so yeah, and it's I've gotten very comfortable with it now. Like I get the whole grief thing because we just did this write up on the Kubler-Ross change curve and how people and organizations are affected by the pandemic. And it was really interesting because where there were big similarities, you could tell there was really good communication, and where there were big differences, big disparities in the responses, you could tell that their leadership and communication was probably not as helpful as it could have been. And when I looked at where I was at, I think at the very beginning, I was extremely fearful, which isn't like me at all. But
Mm.
then as I moved through it, I got less fearful, and now I'm not afraid at all. It's it's funny, isn't it? And I still find, though, going out and about, do you find this, like if you get takeaway food or something, like I've actually been tested for COVID-19 because I had a respiratory illness, and I got tested and I was negative, thank God. So I went into this takeaway and Chinese place, and the lady, like, I think I got a little too close to her and she jumped back. She had this look in her eyes like, and I just said, oh, it's okay. I don't have it. I've been tested. I don't know if that actually helped. I think she had freaked her out even more. But it's been a really common experience to come across people who've just been like on constant state of hypervigilance. Have you found that?
Yeah, okay, so like I'm one of the hypervigilant. Like I'm really chill about it, so I'm really good at not being sudden so that no one feels weird. But it's just like I'm a real it's a weird one. In some ways I'm a real super rule follower. Like there are some ways in which I'll bend society's rules, but that's just because I have a different rule in my head. But
Right.
really with the when I go for walks, I'm the one who'll like, there's someone
Just be
20 meters away.
measuring.
I'll start veering away so that we don't have to do that awkward, like who's going to move.
Yeah, that's so
Like,
funny.
yeah, no, so it's kind of funny, but I really have been staying mostly at home. It mostly only happens in supermarkets, but then, sometimes someone gets up in your space and all I do is I just don't move. Like, but yeah, I'm
Nobody
one of them.
move.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh gosh, I wish I was a fly on the wall watching you do that, because that would be quite funny, I reckon. Yeah, it's been a fascinating experience, but I'm sensing that things have shifted for people. I mean, we're heading on the other side of it, at least in our little, Australia, New Zealand bubble. And, I feel like the end is in sight. And I think that there's been so much focus on all the negativity around it, and all the kind of beating people over the head going, download this app, and not just from the government. Like, it's been really coercive, and I've seen friends of mine who are normally quite laid back actually kind of bullying people into downloading the app, and that has concerned me a little bit, I have to say. You sort of see how these things just happen gradually over time, and I just kind of sit back and go, I think I'm just
Yeah.
gonna maybe just wait and see how this pans out first before I just jump straight in there.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that the human dynamic, I'm finding it really interesting to observe how people are in a crisis. What's been the biggest standout for you in terms of human behavior?
Okay. So I was so angry at everyone for freaking out when this first happened. This is before I had my little anticipatory grief moment, which is what it's called.
Right.
I remember now. But I think the most interesting thing for me was we all respond to tremendous uncertainty really, really differently. And it's not useful for me to be annoyed at people for responding in a different way to
Yeah.
how I respond. So I respond with like hypervigilance, hyper self-sufficiency, I'm fine, we're moving on, everything's okay. But other people don't respond in that way, and that's like, that's okay. But also other people will also respond with like, you should, we all should. And that's hard to deal with, but it's also like, that's their problem.
Yeah.
And that, my problem is I will deal with the consequences of them, if they find out that I disagree, but I'm okay with that. and it's not my job to like change their mind. And,
Yeah.
this is all my beliefs, of course, like everyone do what you want, but I just found like, I mean, I feel like there have been other versions of this particular issue with the app, right? So I know a lot of people who felt very strongly in both directions about my health record, for example. And, you know, I can understand why someone would believe both sides, but the
Yeah.
way in which we tell people you should is so
Yeah.
damning.
It is. It's like anytime you use the word should, it's like it shouldn't be like that. It should be like that. It's like we've got this complaint about it, and it actually doesn't produce a different result in people.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Because our opinions at the end of the day, they're just opinions. They don't matter, really. Like, they are just opinions. That's just our
No,
point of
exactly.
view.
But you know, like people are turning opinions into something as fierce as like religious belief. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I haven't seen someone try to convert me this hard on like
I
an
know.
app or a different app. It's
Yeah.
like, you know, it's kind of interesting to me. And like, this is the thing, is like people, what I've found really curious to just sort of watch is like, on what basis? Like some people will try logic, some people will try like heartfelt, some people will try, and it's just you know, like it's a weird thing to receive sales pitches
Yeah.
from
I'm
friends.
not I'm not inspired by that at all. I'm definitely not inspired by a prime minister, you know, talking to the Australian population like we're all children. And, you know, maybe I do have an opinion on that, but
Yeah, but
it
that's your
doesn't inspire
opinion. You know what I
me.
mean? Yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying I'm not going to download it, but at the moment it doesn't even work. So I'm not, I'm one of those people, I tend not to be an early adopter with things like that. I tend
Yeah.
to sit back and wait for the bugs to come out, and then I'll jump in once I'm satisfied that the bugs have been dealt with in any kind of technology. That's how I am. And so, and right or wrong, I don't know. It doesn't really matter, because opinions don't really matter in terms of they're, you know, it's all relative, right? We all just have a view.
Yeah.
Um, and my view is that I prefer to wait and see. And so I don't have an opinion about whether people download it or not. Like, it's totally up to them and what they feel resonates for them. Um,
Mm.
but I think if you go against your conscience on anything, it's like you're taking a little piece of yourself away.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, so I think it's a really important decision for people to make individually. And, you know, I think it's fine to talk about it and discuss it. I just don't think it's useful for people to just start hitting people over the head with it. Like,
Oh,
it doesn't work.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it, like firstly, you know, it's not making a compelling case. And secondly, you're just like burning bridges of the people you kind of need around you at a time like this. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And look, you know, I just kind of take it for what it is. People are a bit
yeah.
hysterical.
Yeah.
And I totally get it. Like, if it works and it actually makes it better for everybody, then great, you know. Um, but I also see that historically things like that have been used for bad, not just used for good. And I'm cautious about it because of that. You know,
Yeah.
this is coming from, you know, someone whose ancestors ended up in Auschwitz and Birkenwald. So, you know, I was ingrained in my memory as a young child by my grandparents the importance of self-determination. And I can't, I don't know, for whatever reason, I just find it difficult to let that go. I don't ever really like the herd mentality.
Yeah.
Does that make
I think
sense?
that's really important. And I don't think you're alone in this. And I think it's there, you know, the government decided that this was a solution. It is their job to be convincing, and you're unconvinced, and that's fine. And some other people are really convinced, and that's also fine. And as to
Mm-hmm.
what is most correct, we'll all find out, maybe, or maybe
Only
we
time will
won't.
tell.
So
Yeah.
exactly.
I'm probably going to get like a barrage of messages saying, why haven't you signed up? I'm just going to put a caveat on that. Yet. I haven't signed up yet. So, you know what? If you want me to sign up, feel free to leave me a message or a comment and inspire me to do it.
You know, justify, make a good case for it. We'll consider it. I haven't signed up. I just haven't been informed on the issue. I'm typically pretty tinfoil hat about this stuff, just because, you know, firstly, okay, this is again opinion. I haven't really researched into it too hard. The amount of people that have to register for it to be useful is a significant percentage of our population. And I don't think that they're going to reach that critical mass. If they do, then I will consider it more, but I will not be the, you know, I'm not going to, I'm similar. I'm not going to be an early adopter on this particular one.
Yeah. No, I get it. Okay. Well, we have definitely covered a hot topic. It's probably not where I plan to go today, but that's okay. I'm open to discussing these things. I think it's good. So tell me when we come to the end of this and we can have our Together 2020 parties and we can celebrate together and give lots of people hugs, what's that going to look like for you? Like, what's going to be important to you coming out of this?
Okay. So before the pandemic set in, we had made the decision to relocate overseas. We were going to do that. Yeah, we were going to do that at the end of our lease in mid-September. And we're not sure if that's going to happen in the same time frame. Even if our lockdown alleviates, it depends on other countries. And then, you know, will there be more restrictive visas? You know, which countries are probably going to be higher risk than they were. I mean, think about a year ago, it would have been great to move to the UK. Now, not sure. So one thing is, on the other side of this, we'll have a bit more certainty on that. And I'm really excited about that. And I will be having a banging farewell party. I'm so excited to see other people. I really miss hugs.
Me too.
That's really what I'm looking forward to. The other thing that I'm really happy about, right, and this might seem a little off topic, but I have grown up in Brisbane. I have lived here pretty much my whole life. It's all I know. And I know that there are things about moving overseas that I won't understand until I move. I know that I've never really experienced homesickness. I've never been more than 50 kilometers, living 50 kilometers away from my mum or my dad. There's a tremendous community around me. I can walk into Chermside Shopping Centre and probably run into someone I went to primary school with. So knowing that, what I've been really wonderfully happy about is I still feel very surrounded. Even though for the last 4 or 5 weeks, I haven't seen anyone outside of my partner. And I'm trusting a lot more that when I do make that move, I will still be surrounded, because it feels that way, even though we haven't been able to see each other in person. But also what I'm really excited about, the biggest part of my life that probably changed was I dance like 2 to 5 times a week at Mad Dance House in the city. And I've been doing that for over 2 years. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. So we've been hanging out on Zoom.
Yeah.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's a big part of my life. It's actually I didn't realize how big a part of my social life it was as well. Just seeing the same faces day in, day out. And so being able to go back into studio and hang out in person, and I mean, feel the feeling in the room, which you can't quite replicate on Zoom. That's what I'm really, really excited about. Oh, and also with I know certain allied health has reopened recently, so I went and got a massage last week, and I was so excited.
We can get massages now.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, thank God. I can't wait. I really need a massage. That's awesome. Thank you for letting me know. I need to find a good place. So maybe you've got some tips from me.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll let you know a good name.
oh, good. Please do. Yeah, because I'm desperate for a massage. I've been dying for one. My partner he's awesome and lovely, but he's not a massage therapist. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, same with mine. It's really like, I mean, it's a nice gesture, but it doesn't do what it needs to.
No, yeah, yeah, it is a nice gesture. You're absolutely right. It's the thought that counts. No, I'm just kidding. He's not that bad, really. Seriously, I'll get into trouble. So wow, thank you so much for sharing. It's been a really fun conversation. Actually, it went off on a completely different tangent to what I expected, which is part of the joy of doing these interviews is that every single one looks completely different. And I wish you well for your travels. We were supposed to be going to Myanmar the weekend that
Oh,
we were told
wow.
we had to stay at home,
Oh my
and
gosh.
yeah, and it was heartbreaking to cancel that trip and lose all the money and all of that. But we didn't lose too much because it was a pretty. We were backpacking, so we weren't like staying in high-end hotels or resorts or cruise ships and all that. So, yeah, and we've been talking a little bit about, well, when are we going to go? And who knows? Like
Who
nobody
knows?
knows. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be going to Italy next year for my 50th birthday. Yes, I'm turning 50 next year. Can you believe it?
Oh,
And I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're going to have a
yeah.
plan B or maybe a plan C.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just we have no idea. And like, I really wanted to send someone a flight voucher, but I was like, I don't even know which airline will still be around,
Yeah.
when this is all over. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Wow. So I always end these episodes by acknowledging my guests. So Rosie, I want to acknowledge you because you are just an amazing human being. I've had the privilege of getting to know you over the last couple of years and seeing your growth and seeing what you've dealt with and how you've recovered and how you've just come out all guns blazing and shining. And you really, really inspire me. And I want you to take that acknowledgement, please, because it's true. And I want to
Thanks.
thank you for coming on the show, for being brave enough to have a conversation that you didn't really know where it was going to go, because that takes courage. And being brave enough to actually look into the future and think about planning a travel, like a travel adventure when you haven't really done that much of that. So that's really awesome. Um,
Cheers. Yeah, no, I really appreciate it, man. And like, this has been a great conversation. And, like people, you're right. This is a lot of the stuff the choices that I've made lately have taken a bit more courage than you would expect. And you've totally called them out. And I thank you.
my pleasure.